yang dia guna work, dia guna they can do the earlier draft on work. They change that and change the case.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. Greetings to Yang Mulia Tengku Muhammad Fauzi Tengku Abdul Hamid, Vice Chairman of Malaysia Human Rights Commission, also known as SUHAKAM. Mr. Yap Sanyo, Greenpeace Executive Director. Ms. Ding Xiu Xuan, Greenpeace Malaysia Senior Program Manager. Mr. Q Jayao, Partner Q&Co and member of CHERA. Mr. Dennis Chan, President of CHERA. Dear media partner and all the friends from civil society organizations, thank you for coming. Welcome to the launch of Silent Enemies Reports on Haze Pollutions and Rights to Clean Air, organized by Malaysia Human Rights Commission. My name is Nick Gadgets. You can call me Haze, and I will be your host for today's event. Yeah, the topic given is haze pollutions and rights to clean air. So in Malaysia, we always make the jokes that Malaysia has 4 seasons. The first one is durian season. The second one is dengue season. The third one is floods. And then number 4 is haze. So what does it mean? It means that all this, the haze is also a regular event and it's become a norm. It's a normal thing. And unfortunately, I think I will say like all these seasons like haze, floods, and dengue, all these are also directly affected by the climate change, which we don't want this to happen. So besides durian, durian is a good season, but the rest are the bad seasons. So we want to take actions to solve these problems together. So Together, I still remember in Malaysia, in the past few years, we have a darurat, we call darurat jerubu, Haze emergency. In the history of Malaysia, we used to have 3 darurat jerubu, which is 1997, 2003, 2005, and also 2013. So for those who are more senior, you might heard of this, this darurat. I also gone through this process before. I still remember when I was a young boy, many years ago, especially in 1997, that time the Malaysian government announced darurat jerubu, and all the kids like us, we had to stay at home, and we all had to wear the face mask. That is the first time that I got to know about N95 face mask. We wear N95 face mask not because of, I know about N95 face mask, not because during pandemic, but because of this darurat jerubu. I still remember usually the poor students have to wear the surgical face mask. That time it cost about 10 cents to 20 cents. Whereas the N95 face mask, it costs like 50 cents. I mean, 20 years ago, that one is quite expensive for all of us. So what I can see is like, poor people always suffer, and then I'm still thinking, like 20 years later, I'm standing here, unfortunately, to talk about this jerubu issue again. So I think that this is also a very complicated issue that we cannot solve by 1 or 2 parties. That's why we need to work together. Today, I'm glad that we have a group of civil society organizations and SUHAKAM. We did roundtable discussions, and they are going to publish the human rights reports with the recommendations. So, without further ado, let us welcome Yang Mulia Tengku Muhammad Fauzi Tengku Abdul Hamid, Vice Chairman of Malaysian Human Rights Commission, to give his welcoming remarks. Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. Representing Mr. Yap Sano, Southeast Director for Greenpeace, Ms. Ting Xiao Shun, Program Coordinator, Greenpeace, Mr. Q Jayo, Pro Tem Committee Member of CHUA, members of the press, members of CSOs and NGOs, organizing committees on both CHUA and SUHAKAM side, and staff of SUHAKAM present here today. I wish to thank them straight away, as I said before I forgot. Okay, Assalamualaikum, and good morning to my fellow commissioners, members of CHUA Coalition, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and privilege for me to be standing here and to welcome everyone to the launch of the report on Haze pollution and the right to clean air. The launch of this report is timely as Malaysia is committed to achieving a sustainable future in support of the United Nations 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development, amongst others, that promotes green technology as part of our action to combat climate change and its impact under Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDG number 13, regarding clean air and climate. In December 2022, SUHAKAM had urged the Malaysian government to amend Article 5 of the Federal Constitution to expressly include the right to a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. With the right enshrined in the Federal Constitution, enforcement on environmental issues could be further enhanced due to renewed focus on environment-related issues. This is in line with the historical 2022 United Nations General Assembly resolution that declared that access to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment as a universal human right. Countries around the world have amended their constitution to express the above right. The Kingdom of Norway, for instance, has been progressive in their environmental protection and amended their constitution to include Article 112 of their constitution, which, if I may quote here, the right to an environment that is conducive to health and to a natural environment whose productivity and diversity are maintained, close quote. Further, the citizens are also entitled to information on the state of the natural environment and on the effects of activities planned or carried out. Judiciaries across the region, Philippines, New Zealand, India, and Ecuador have expanded the parameters of locus standi to recognize the right to file a civil suit on behalf of non-living objects such as rivers, trees, and rocks. In other words, they have given personality to these inanimate things. This reflects the judiciary's role in upholding environmental rights. In Malaysia, in his speech at the opening of the legal year 2017, former Chief Justice Yang Amat Arif Tun Arifin bin Zakaria expressed his opinion in favor of amending the Federal Constitution to expressly include a right to clean and healthy environment. Further, the current Chief Justice of Malaysia, Yang Amat Arif Tun Tengku Maimun binti Tuan Mat, during the welcoming address at the SUHAKAM training workshop held on 2nd December 2020, also made reference to the case of Tan Tek Seng against Suruhanjaya Perkhidmatan Pendidikan and stated that life encompasses all of these various aspects, including the right to a clean environment. The phrase clean environment is often confined to meaning water, air, soil, and food. It is perhaps time to reassess the right by considering whether it further includes the right to a reasonably disease-free environment, especially in light of COVID-19. We at SUHAKAM are of the view that it is very timely to consider the amendment to the rules of the Court of 2012 to include access to environmental justice. Ladies and gentlemen, in recent years in Malaysia, we have experienced several climate calamities involving increased air pollution, landslides and floods, where we have had to just stand and watch the crisis unfold before our eyes. Vulnerable communities around the world and in Malaysia suffer the extreme effect of climate change, with women, children, and indigenous groups being affected greatly. The issue seems to be even more compounding, increasing even further what has already been a multifaceted intersectional issue. In 2019, the World Health Organization, or WHO, recorded that 99% of the world's population was living in places where the WHO air quality guidelines were not met, while ambient or outdoor air pollution is estimated to have caused 4.2 million premature deaths worldwide in the same year, 2019. The WHO further reported that the air pollution is second highest risk factor for non-communicable disease, a long battle in public health arena. Hence, the report is a move to a right direction as it addresses legal and policy gaps in domestic and transboundary pollution, in particular Haze, aspiration to combat climate change and impact thereof. Recommendations in the report should be discussed further as the next step for SUHAKAM and SHRA and its environmental partners to improve the related laws and policies in environmental protection and sustainability. Reiterating the key takeaway from the report, air pollution cannot be addressed in isolation, neither can air quality be improved and protected by changes in the legal system alone. The right to clean air can only be protected through an integrated all of government and all of society approach to development. reiterating the UN Secretary General's Antonio Guterres' speech in 2020, where he stated, open quote, climate emergency is fully upon us, and we have no time to waste, and emphasized the call for climate action efforts to leave no one behind. Mr. Guterres warned that we are fast approaching a tipping point that will trigger escalating feedback loops of global heating. On behalf of this and future generations, he says, I urge you, choose ambition, choose solidarity, choose to safeguard our future and save humanity, he concluded. Finally, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Chura Coalition and of course the team from SUHAKAM for the work that has gone into developing the report, as well as for organizing the launch of this important report on haze pollution and the right to clean air. I would also like to put on record our deepest appreciation to SUHAKAM's former Commissioner, Dato' Mark Mengkwai, who was our Commissioner from 2019 to 2022, for his commitment and support, having contributed especially at the stage of holding the roundtable discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, the group of you. Please remain on stage. Okay, so we will also we are going to launch our report soon. So we will also like to invite other guests such as Mr. Q Jaya from Q and Co, and then Dennis Chan, President of Chura, and Ms. Deng Shu Xuan, Greenpeace Malaysia Senior Program Manager, to come to the stage.
Kalau mau rapat je. Kalau mau rapat. Rapat. Tutup. Depan rapat.
Okay, the group, you have both come to sign the reports with the witness of Q and also institution.
Kau kena duduk atas tak orang?
Okay, so everyone just give like 2 more minutes for media to take photo. Okay, be serious. This is about haze pollutions. So just look at in front, look at the media. Okay, so thanks to the volunteers, they are all holding the 6 recommendations launched by Malaysian Human Rights Commission in order to address these haze pollutions and local air pollutions in Malaysia. Okay. All right. Thanks to all the volunteers. So you can go to your left hand side and dismiss and go back. Thank you. And then thanks to Tuitions and also Jaya. So Tengku, please remain on the stage. You are going to do start your presentations.
Hello again. I have a short presentation based on the slides that we have prepared. And the topic of presentation is the launch of Silent Enemy Report on Haze Pollution and the Right to Clean Air, timeline and recommendations. Next slide, please. In December 2021, SUHAKAM received a complaint from Greenpeace Malaysia and the Coalition of Civil Society Organizations and non-governmental organizations collectively pollution to examine existing inflation legislation, regulation, and rules of civil and criminal procedure regarding the governance of domestic and transboundary haze pollution. This is the first environmental complaint received by SUHAKAM pursuant to Section 4 and 12 of the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia Act, or the SUHAKAM Act 1999. The objectives of the roundtable is to examine the gaps in the Malaysian and regional legal policy frameworks, including legislation, regulations, and rules of civil and criminal procedure. To advise and make recommendations on ways to strengthen and protect persons' rights to a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment free from air pollution, and to make recommendations based on the themes of the 4 themes here. Strengthening the recognition of environmental rights in Malaysia, strengthening the governance of air quality in Malaysia, strengthening the governance of transboundary haze pollution, and strengthening business and human rights in Malaysia. Next slide, please. Recommendations. Recommendation to amend the Federal Constitution to expressly recognize the right to a safe, clean, and sustainable environment. This, I think, refers to Article 5. SUHAKAM urges the government to amend the Federal Constitution to expressly recognize every person's right to a safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. At the moment, the Article 5 is limited to the right to life only, and does not mention the extension that I mentioned just now to environment, clean air, etc. So perhaps this definition or this article should be expanded. Yeah. So the amendment should require the Malaysia natural resources and heritage to be managed on the basis of comprehensive long-term considerations which will safeguard this right for future generations as well. The amendment should also require that in order to safeguard the policy right, the public should have access to information on the state of the environment and on the effects of any encroachment on nature that is planned or carried out. Next slide, please. In July 2022, Malaysia has voted in favor of the United Nations General Assembly resolution, or UNGA, which declared access to a healthy environment as a universal human right. The resolution calls upon states, international organizations, and business enterprises to scale up efforts to ensure a healthy environment for all. The Malaysian government should urgently follow through to expressly enshrine this right in the Federal Constitution as a fundamental liberty. Fundamental liberties, I think, is in Part 2 of the Federal Constitution. Okay, such a constitutional amendment should provide the normative foundation for the interpretation of all present and future legislation, regulation, and policies, thereby firstly elevating environmental consideration from the realm of discretion to one of equality across all government bodies and public institutions at all levels, as well as across the federal and state government dichotomy. Second, improving the alignment of Malaysia's ecosystem with sustainable development. And third, enabling Malaysia's efforts against climate change and a just transition from fossil fuels and other practices that contribute to climate change. Next slide, please. Other recommendations. This is a short presentation. It'll be quite fast. Just now we talked about Article 5. That was recommendation number 1. Recommendation number 2 is to amend the rules of the Court 2012 to improve access to environmental justice. So I can recommend that the Rules Committee, consisting of the Attorney General's Chambers, the Judiciary, Malaysian Bar, Sabah Law Society and Advocates Association of Sarawak, urgently amend the rules of the Court of 2012 to include specific rules of civil procedure for environmental proceedings to improve access to justice. Recommendation number 3, enact a Clean Air Act for Malaysia. So I can urge the Malaysian government to enact holistic framework legislation for clean air in Malaysia. It has to be mentioned that the current act, one of which is the Environmental Quality Act, is not comprehensive and does not address the issues that are needed. Recommendation number 4, accelerate the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. And this in particular refers to SDG number 13, which considers or regards climate action, for example, clean air and environment, etc. So I can urge the Malaysian government to accelerate the implementation of the SDGs, especially through institutional transformations across all levels, to ensure inclusive participation of all stakeholders. Recommendation number 5, accelerate development of National Action Plan on Business Human Rights. So I can urge the Malaysian government to prioritize and accelerate the development of Malaysia's National Action Plan, or the NAP, on business and human rights. NAP. I think I would like to mention, Article 92.3, which is related to this point of this recommendation of the Federal Constitution, which defines Article 92.3 defines a development plan. So this definition of development plans, is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it gives the right to develop. On the other hand, it gives the right to exploit. So people may not notice that the right to exploit is predatory in nature. And because of this loophole or weakness, companies, huge companies, development companies that clear forests, for development and all that, they do it indiscriminately, causing adverse climate change like floods, mud flows and all that. So this has got to change, this Article 92.3, to sort of eliminate the predatory aspect. And that's what we think. And also, by extension, because of this weakness, there are companies which escape punishment, so to speak, because of the wide discretionary powers of the Attorney General in Article 145, basically 3, 4, 5, subsection 3, 4, and 5 which confers on the AG almost absolute discretion whether to prosecute or not. So reform here is also needed to separate the powers of the AG prosecution powers from him, and to perhaps put it into another body or institution. For example, the Director of Public Prosecutions, which is practiced in other jurisdictions like UK, Australia, Canada, and so on. I understand that the government is studying on this and has instituted a move towards this reform. Because by this present weakness, where the prosecution powers is rested in the Attorney General alone, and he has priority over others in the court of law. Culprits which are highly connected perhaps to the government, will not be prosecuted, to put it in short. Of course, this may take a whole day to discuss, but this is not. I would like to stress. And next recommendation is recommendation number 6. Improve the ASEAN Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution to strengthen the rule of law in ASEAN. So I can recommend that the Malaysian government take the lead at the ASEAN level to propose the development of a protocol to the AATHP to establish a legal binding commitment by each member state to enact domestic legislation to hold to account its citizens and corporations domiciled in its own jurisdiction for their contribution to land and or forest fires in other member states. I think Malaysia has got some weakness still there because of our federal system where states have no separate jurisdiction and they revolve around the central government. Therefore, this has got to be streamlined, and I think the law reforms should encompass this. Okay, I think I'm coming to the end of it. I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Tengku, for his presentations. Okay. Yes, okay, if you look at what we have discussed just now, Tengku have presented 6 recommendations. Okay, let me recap. Okay, these 6 recommendations, it looks easy, but also a bit complicated. Okay, let me summarize. The first one is to amend the federal constitution to recognize the right to a safe, clean, and sustainable environment. The second one is amend the rules of court 2012 to improve access to environmental justice. The third one is enact a Clean Air Act in Malaysia, because in Malaysia we do not have this Clean Air Act. Number 4 is this improve ASEAN agreement of transboundary haze pollutions. Number 5 is accelerate the development of national action plans on business and human rights. Number 6 is accelerate the implementations of the Sustainable Development Goals. So what does it mean? It means that air pollution also requires efforts, and at least we need 6 recommendations. Remember, to solve air pollution in the region, the first one we have to amend federal constitutions to recognize the right to have healthy environments, to improve environmental justice, Clean Air Act, transboundary haze agreements, business and human rights, and sustainable development goals. So these are the 6 recommendations that we have. So without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Q Jayap, environmental lawyer, and also from Q&Co to start his presentations to elaborate more. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you so much, and a very good morning to everyone. It's really quite a pleasure to be here. It's a very special day for the launch of this very important report. Now that we've got the report, what do we do moving forward? So as we look forward, I I'd like to invite everyone to just, let's look at how did we get here in terms of the complaint, which was a landmark complaint, a historic one, and then the roundtable process, and then culminating into the report containing these 6 very foundational type of recommendations. So maybe you could, just I'd like to share a little bit of that story, essentially, which is a story about collaboration, because that's going to inform us in terms of moving forward with what do we do with the report. Because the report won't walk itself, it won't materialize itself, it won't manifest itself. It will need all of us from all sectors to use this report in our respective ways. So this is just basically a little bit about the SUHAKAM Coalition, and then a little bit about what is inside this SUHAKAM report. SUHAKAM Coalition is itself a grassroots organization that really formed spontaneously from individuals in the Klang Valley, largely, who in the 2019 Haze episode. You people remember the 2019 Haze, that was a particularly long and serious episode of Haze. Of course, we have it almost every year, especially back then when we didn't have this much of the La Nina phenomenon. So 97, it went on for more than 3 months, and so people got fed up. So we got together. So these groups, people. So 2015 was about that time. Oh, sorry, did I say 2019? So 2019 was a bad one. 2015 was also a bad one, which was also for months. So 2015 was when this group of people from all walks, there were lawyers, there were engineers, there were scientists, there were academics, and they, one of the first big meetings we had was at the Malaysian Center for Constitutional and Human Rights, MCCHR. And sorry, I'm just pointing at the next screen, I'm not very good at this one. So 2015 was when people got together and then starting to work on this, like, what is this Haze problem? Who is causing this? Like, why do we have to breathe these polluted air, every time? And then we have to do all these things that really disrupt. We have to take care of our children, schools get closed, we can't exercise, people with respiratory conditions have to take leave from work, all sorts of problems, right? So people got together and said, like, who's the problem? Who's the cause of it? So that started SUHAKAM. And over the years, we continued to organize ourselves and to think about what are the causes of Haze and what can we all do about it as citizens. So that really is in a nutshell, how SUHAKAM came together. And so over the years, we've connected with more and more other organizations and groups trying to piece and getting a good sense that the Haze isn't something that you can fix easily. That the problem was actually quite complicated, right? So then we decided that because of we realized that because of the complicatedness of this problem, and it was a problem that really infringed on everyone's basic right to clean air. Just air, we can't escape this. We can be in an air-filtered room for a while, but not all the time, right? And we need everyone to be safe and healthy, right? And this is a chronic problem. It's been around, like Haze has mentioned, for decades, and it is it has harms on people disproportionately on people who are poor, people who have illnesses and conditions, health conditions, people who are aged, and all types of people whose work requires them to be outdoors. And so it was a complicated thing, and we decided that, we thought that, hey, we would go to the courts, right? That was the first thing. He said, hey, turn to the courts and hold those accountable. Now that wasn't easy because who's to be held responsible? What would be the course of action? Who would be a good plaintiff, suffering the right kinds of harms that can show that, oh, I've been harmed by Haze, and they are responsible. Now that's really challenging. From that, the linear analysis of building a case, plaintiff, cause of action, causation, getting the evidence, and then articulating what kind of damage and harm did you suffer in a court of law situation. So you will see all these things, kind of the framing of how the system, in this case, the judiciary system, the justice system, are not friendly for this particular problem, right? So the problem of air pollution, because air pollution is as Tengku has mentioned, is a byproduct from development. And we need development to have the basic things that we want, and of course the whole spectrum of the fancy things as well. But we need development so that we have food security, so that we have jobs, so that we can earn a living, so that we can have a growth in the country. But at this cost, some people are paying a higher cost for development than others. And others who are benefiting from the degradation of our environment, from the pollution of the air, and the usage of the air, are not paying for this cost because the polluter pays principle isn't coming to life. Because we don't have cases on Haze in our courts. But all of us are assaulted by these physical particles against our will, right? Yeah. So you could frame it in various ways. You put on your legal hat. We are assaulted by Haze particles that come from burning plantations against our free will. And I can't help it because I can't avoid these Haze particles. So how different is it from someone who throws a rock at you? So it is an assault in that sense. Because it's entering my body, it's coming to my body against my will. But access to justice was the problem because the rules and the procedure and the cause of action, the recognition of environmental rights is weak within our system. So not just the judiciary system, but also the business structures, right, where it's basically a systematic deprioritization of health, of cost to people, especially people, marginalized communities. These things are deprioritized. So these systems too are part of the problem. So we said, hey, going to the courts would be hypothetically possible, but it would be very, very difficult, and the outcome would be a very, very small part of the real case story. So we said, maybe we should go to a quasi-judicial forum. We went to SUHAKAM. We came to SUHAKAM instead. So we said, hey, let's go to SUHAKAM. So when we decided that, hey, okay, we're going to do a complaint and bring this as a human rights issue to SUHAKAM, right? So that's Chirac is a small team. We decided that we'll do that. Then, our NGO friends then came together as well, because this wasn't just one NGO's problem. It relates to the work that many other NGOs that have been seriously working on these issues as well. And so a coalition was formed, and everyone contributed towards the complaint. Right? And so we developed a comprehensive Haze complaint to be submitted to the SUHAKAM. Right? And so that's the Chirac Coalition. In total, it's got 12 organizations. Chirac itself, Greenpeace Malaysia, SUHAKAM Malaysia, Climate Action Malaysia, PERCA, SUARAM, GRAS Malaysia, EPSM, got Global Environment Center, we've got MyHutan, under PAT, then we've got JEDI and Stop Open Burning in Johannesburg. So it's a large group. There were other groups as well that didn't lend their name, but we also contributed to articulating the complaint. The complaint sets out the scope, the scope of the Haze problem and the right to clean air problem, right? With identifying some of the root cause issues, and then some of the impacts, and then what are some of the core recommendations. So the Cerah Coalition came to be, and so we decided to, SUHAKAM would be a place where the powerful platform for us to bring this. And like I mentioned, SUHAKAM would be compared to the cause, it will be a forum that would enable us to tell the fuller story of Haze pollution. Because if you go to court, it will necessarily be a smaller story because the plaintiff, local standard challenges, so it will be a smaller story. Depending, of course, you can try to bring a class action, which we don't call a class action here in Malaysia. You can try that, but essentially, if you go through the court process, you have to fit into the funnel. So you have to squeeze the big story about the Haze problem into a smaller story, a contorted story. So in comparison, it is a better forum. It is where you can then explore and look at and focus on the issues across, we mentioned the root causes and the impacts that don't need to be relevant only to the plaintiffs or the so-called victims. SUHAKAM will be less procedural, will be less confrontational, and more inquisitive and inquiry type, right? And also, importantly, SUHAKAM's findings and recommendations are powerful. So, 7th December 2021, as Tengku highlighted earlier, was when we submitted that complaint to Dato' Ma, who was then the commissioner, who received it, and immediately we were really encouraged because SUHAKAM welcomed the complaint readily and took the complaint very seriously, and we began discussions about how do we go about this inquiry. So instead of an inquiry, SUHAKAM then said, hey, let's have a big national conversation, in the form of a 2-day roundtable event, roundtable discussion with all the stakeholders coming together so that we can focus and zoom into what are the various things that cause Haze, that allow Haze to persist, and what are the impacts of Haze, and then what are the recommendations that are suitable. So for all the stakeholders, from public sector, from academia, from the industry experts, to NGOs working across different issues to come together and do that. So, so the decision to do the roundtable discussion happened, and then that materialized in the midst of COVID-19 actually. So despite of that, we had a hybrid session, and there was still some movement restrictions at that time. So it was a hybrid event, a 2-day, but a huge number of people, experts took part. Former Chief Justice Richard Malanju gave a keynote. Professor Shah, constitutional expert, gave a keynote address. Our president also, and various others from the vice chairman from the Academy of Sciences Malaysia shared their Haze research and report, their recommendations, and many others. And so that's GE as well, the World Network sharing. So the roundtable was in 2022, and from there, SUHAKAM has taken all the inputs from the 2-day roundtable, but also done since then desk research to supplement things, to put it together, and that's what you will find in the SUHAKAM report that's been launched today. So, so that's a little bit about that coalition journey. Now I'm just going to give you a little bit about what is inside this report. Tengku has shared about 6 recommendations, so campaign as well to emphasize them. So, but what else is it? It's not just the recommendations, it actually sets out some of these things which would be useful for different segments of people. So the report has got 5 parts. So part A is background and the intro. Part B would be the factors behind Haze. Part C is on impacts. Part D then identifies the gaps in the legal framework. And then part E is where the recommendations are. Right? So, yeah. Now, zooming into the factors, I think, so depending on your area of work, whether you're activists with NGO campaigners or you are sustainability officers working on strengthening the ESG efforts within your corporate groups, or a consultant advising business actors, I think the causes are particularly useful and helpful. So just a flavor of what you will find in the things covered under the causes. It identifies that Haze really is largely a man-made problem. It's not a natural event. It's not like snow that happens to happen. No, it is from human activity because we have disturbed ecosystems. Right? That's why they catch fire. They have a tendency to catch fire because we've disturbed ecosystems, and we've disturbed them with our industrial, agricultural practices. Right? So the cause, meteorological considerations do come into play. The climate does come into play in terms of how dry it gets or how wet it gets. It is a factor, but it isn't the trigger to cause that incendiary situation in the first place, that vulnerable situation in the first place. It then zooms in onto these factors that make Haze so difficult to tackle, right, over these many decades and among these many countries in ASEAN. So some reasons. So one of the main issue about accountability is very hard to identify accountability is because the plantations that are burning, the land status, who owns it, who has control over it, who's managing it, are very hard to get data on, right? And there are land disputes as well. Plantation concessions are sometimes given when there are locals who are staying there, and they are challenging the land title, which the state, the government has then given permission for a plantation company to come in. And these conflicts between the agricultural companies and the local communities can give rise to a higher risk of violence. Data challenges generally, so who is where doing what? Maps has been a huge challenge to obtain, and without maps, again, you can't shine light on who ought to improve their operations and stop doing what really heightens the risk of violence. Corporate mask is another real challenge because of just how corporate structures are. So corporations are separate legal entities, they're separate from the shareholders. And so you can have companies holding shares in other companies and those companies holding shares in other companies. And so you have these, and this is the way that businesses structure themselves, especially for transnational corporations. And with that, there's a separation of, with the separate legal entities, there's a separation of the risks and the liabilities. So if you can't bring responsibility or liability home to the ones who are benefiting from it, then they have no motivation, no incentive, no reason to do better or to change their SOPs and their business practices. Right? So that inability to move up the persons that are found on land involved with fires and haze, up to those who actually benefit from those operations that happen on the ground. That linkage is made very, very difficult to establish because of corporate masks. Yeah? And it really doesn't help when you have offshore companies as a thing, where you can't do a company search. That's also very difficult. But even for companies that are not offshore, the shareholders can hold shares on behalf as nominees for people who are otherwise in the public life. So that really makes it a challenge. The other thing which is important to identify is vested interest in regulators, in the government, in holding those who are responsible to account. This is because a lot of these large-scale industrial agriculture activities are done by government-linked companies, and a lot of their boards are populated by political appointees or otherwise elites who are very close with political leaders. And so there is a closeness of the interest. And as Nico Fauzi mentioned just now, as he was summing up the recommendations, the importance of separating the AG chamber's role, from a public prosecutor role, as well as from the role of being the lawyer for the government. So if that role is fused, then there is a direct conflict of interest, and that is a reason why we don't see Haze prosecution as well, or legal action being taken against government-linked companies that have been identified in Indonesian jurisdictions for having fires on or around their plantations. But no legal action is taken here. Now, the lack of motivation or the resistance to enforce the rule of law here, we can describe it as the presence of these vested interests where the role, the involvement is downplayed. And we are familiar with this. Yeah? We are familiar with how the impacts of Haze are downplayed. Right? You will notice that in our media, in our mainstream media, the impacts of Haze is brushed off as just an inconvenience. Right? The research earlier talked about premature deaths, and those who suffer disproportionately, those who do not come in as part of a mainstream narrative about the cost of Haze. So it's a downplay of Haze. In fact, the phrase Haze is such a mild, gentle, easygoing phrase. Haze is just haze. It's not harmful, it isn't toxic, but it is very, very dangerous. Because of particulate matter, it is haze, much of it is PM2.5. It is small enough to penetrate the walls of our blood vessels and get into it, and it is carcinogenic. And so, carcinogenic. And so, the impact, and the impact, I'll talk about impacts afterwards, I'm getting ahead of myself. But vested interest, right? That's why it's so hard for us to take serious action. Vested interest also encourages our government, who's supposed to act for us, to prefer closed-door diplomatic efforts, right? Closed-door diplomatic efforts. Let's discuss with our neighbor countries. So, and then, we cannot be too confrontational, we should rock the boat. We will discuss with them, we will try our best. And then, different politicians come through, we are still doing this closed-door, and the closed-door discussions remove our agency. It takes our power away, where we go, okay, we'll wait for you. That's it. We'll wait for good news. We'll keep our fingers crossed. And if it's very difficult, it's the other country's problem, right? If the problem is there, so we can't do anything. So we have to live with it. We should reject that narrative, right? We should reject that narrative. If we believe in the rule of law, which we all do, which the government does. So, impacts of Haze. Public health impacts, in particular, impacts on children. So impacts on children are very, very, very severe and under emphasized. Right. So in 2021, UNICEF report in the context of Malaysia that talks about the impacts of, it has a climate change lens, but it really goes on and looks at the impact of air pollution on children. And it says, compared to adults, because children, they're physically they're smaller and they breathe more rapidly than adults. So because of that they have to intake more air than us in proportion to their body weight. The amount of toxins, the air pollutants that go through the body is much higher than an adult relatively. And so that's particularly a problem because they are still developing their core organs. Their immune systems are not fully developed as well. And so they are very vulnerable, and these impacts have long-term effects on children. So impacts on children is really serious. There are economic impacts. A lot of businesses close because of Haze. Those outdoor activity companies, for example, those who do training outdoors, and there's a lot of other economic activities, economic costs. The government has to bear a lot of the economic costs that are rising from that because of, as Haze mentioned, sometimes we have emergencies declared to standstill, but there's healthcare costs, for example. All these add on to it. There's again an under emphasis on the cost of Haze. It appears to me that a lot of academic institutions are quite reluctant to actually, look into the true cost of something that is so perennial. Environmental impacts, of course, it affects our biodiversity, it affects our ecosystem resilience. Climate change impacts we talk about because fires release a great amount of air pollutants and GHG into the atmosphere. And then there are, the report also looks into the intersecting risks by that it means, if you're an oral athlete, and if you're a woman, and then if you're a physical disability, and these intersect and they make the impacts of haze pollution, air pollution, much worse for segments like these, right? So the intersectionality aspect also cannot be overlooked. That's on the impacts. Then the report goes into the gaps on the legal framework. So the domestic legal framework gaps, and then there's the regional and the ASEAN regional legal framework gaps. So from an environmental governance aspect, the group has talked about how the low recognition of environmental rights, Article 5, the right to a clean and healthy environment, something so obvious is really a challenge to articulate in courts. In fact, it is not a done deal yet in courts. There's still, from time to time, case decisions that would go either way, where courts would say, Article 5, which says, every person has the right to life and liberty. That right to life shouldn't be read too far to meet the conditions necessary for life. That one is, they will say, that's not in Article 5. You still have judges who do not interpret that because they don't see the connection when they are looking at, do we stop this certain interest from pursuing economic growth, for example. So it's not given, and therefore that is clearly a gap. I'm not going to repeat some of the things that Tengku has mentioned, but otherwise, limited access to data, limited access to information, that's always been a challenge, whether it's official data, whether it's data within sustainability reports, that private actors are their operations. These are all challenges. Limited access. So limited access stops you from framing accurately describe or describing the problem in a strong way, and then it makes it very hard for engagement or holding to account. So civil procedure, that's the process of going into court, that's a gap. It was mentioned already. So many countries have dedicated environmental court rules. So we still don't have them. The Rules Committee has been working on it, but the progress has been too slow. So this recommendation is really important to urge that to hurry up, because the cost of delays is very great. So from a regional perspective, Tuku has also mentioned that the ASEAN Agreement on Transboundary Haze Pollution needs to be improved. Right now, it really focuses on collaboration on fighting fires, but fighting fires, that means like technical, physical support for responding to fires. And fires are when the root causes have manifested themselves into fires and haze. So the ASEAN Agreement, it is time for it now to evolve into a better piece of treaty in this region, so that we have a rule of law across the region, because we have transnational corporations more and more. So companies are operating across jurisdictions, and our laws are necessarily there because of sovereignty is jurisdictional. It's only so. Of course, our law technically allows someone who has been harmed by something coming across the borders to hold them to account, but it is a very cumbersome. So the ease of holding to account is a problem. I mean, the ease of holding to account, it's a problem to the extent that 0 cases, all right? So it's you might as well call it a possibility. So improving the ASEAN Transboundary Haze Pollution Agreement, there are recommendations here. So there's a gap here in terms of the legal mechanisms, how each country should do more in terms of the rule of law, strengthening the rule of law. And by that, we need where the people who have rights, and when those rights are affected, here is right to clean air, they can then bring their grievance and their complaint against those that they perceive, they understand to be affecting their right, who have the duty onto them. So that's the limitations presently in the 2002 agreement. And of course, domestically in Malaysia, we don't have an express law that enables the local Malaysian government agencies to take action for actions done by corporate actors overseas. Technically, in law, there are ways, it's not impossible within the existing legal system, but again, it's a motivation issue as well. But having an express law would be helpful. So that was something that the previous governments have looked into, which is to have a national transboundary haze pollution law. That's been mulled and discussed. YBUE has worked on it actively under Ms. Tech when she was in power. Currently, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability, is also still has an active team that's looking at the development of this legislation. And of course, Tengku has also mentioned there's a gap in terms of business and human rights, linking human rights with corporate actors. So that's on the gaps, a flavor of the gaps identified in this report. I'm not going to go through the recommendations, so there you are again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So really very comprehensive. So okay, what do we do with the report? How do we use this report? So of course, so I think the message here is by all means let's use this report. But how here are some ways, right? So for NGO friends who are here, campaigners, the civil society groups, use the contents of this report. By all means, use the findings in here, the recommendations in here to augment your organization, your community group, your work, augment your call to action to support it, right? Because it will, out of the identification of root causes, out of the recommendations, it will support. Right? Use it to validate your problem statements. And if you're from the corporate sector, use this, the contents in here, to triangulate it and reference it with your company's identification of issues, right? So your company's got prioritized this ESG focus areas. So, and then you say, okay, maybe on biodiversity, maybe on local communities' impacts, then use this one because you're navigating what? You're navigating your other departments within your business organization. You need to sharpen your ability to say from your sustainability department why you guys are doing this and why transformation internally in your business company is necessary. You're negotiating this with your sales team, you're negotiating this with your procurement team, you're negotiating this with your legal team internally, right? So use this report. This report would be useful for you in that sense. Of course, the analysis inside as well. So for representatives from public sector, this is also very useful to you. Right? So in your existing work, whether it's in strengthening transformations in air quality governance, either in existing frameworks or pushing for reform, and various other areas that you may be working, whether it's about making data available, right, or improving, increasing public engagement with civil society organizations. You can use this as well. So, at the end of the day, this really has been a story about partnership and solidarity. Because to tackle the Haze problem, it's a problem that is complex. It's also a problem, it's complex because so many of us are involved in contributing to the problem in very small ways. So that's one aspect of its complexity. So this moving forward, when I started off, this report isn't obviously it's not a cure for Haze. Our exposure to risk of Haze is the same. It's just what do we do from here onwards with this better articulation of the problem, a better framing of the problem, a better identification of who can do something about it, a better articulation about what solutions would look like in the form of the recommendation. So we're really grateful to have been able to work so closely with SUHAKAM. We're grateful to former Commissioner Dr. Ma, to present the leadership of Tunku Fauzi and the whole team at SUHAKAM. And of course, Chira's side, we should really be grateful for Greenpeace Malaysia, just, really just made available like what Greenpeace International's experience, advice, resources, and just access to people who can then say, hey, are you thinking about this? Are you thinking about that? Because it really, Chira Coalition is just a group of volunteers and people from all walks of life. So having Greenpeace Malaysia supporting has been wonderful. And of course, the support hasn't just come from Greenpeace. There are other really solid NGOs as well that are directly part of this coalition. So our huge thanks to everyone, and also everyone outside of the coalition who contributed in so many ways to what has now resulted in this report. So thank you very much for this episode of Thanks everyone.
Thank you Mr. Kim Jayal for the presentations. So Mr. Kim, please remain on the stage. We'll come to the Q&A sessions. So meanwhile, I would like to invite Tengku to come to the stage. So now we will come to the this Q&A. Okay, after listening to Tengku's and Jaya's presentations, I found that it's a bit challenging, it's complicated, okay, to solve these air pollutions. That's why when I talk about like tackling these haze pollutions in the regions, a lot of people say like it's very complicated, it's not easy. But of course, there are some good news, there are some positive progress. So now we come to this Q&A sessions. So I was told that there are also some local committee members, like Orang Kampung, they all will suffer from the local haze pollutions and also trans-boundary haze pollution. So you can also come forward to ask your questions, go there. And for the friends of media, if you have any questions, then you can also ask us here. So when you come out, you just say like, mention your name, where are you from, and what is your questions. Okay? Oh yeah, we have a gentleman there.
Good morning. Hi, good morning. My name is Anthony. It's not because of the case. It's so true. I'm from the APPJ SDG. My question is regarding what can we do next year. Since Malaysia will be the chair of ASEAN, how can we bring this report and what has been plaguing us for decades to the fore in ASEAN? Because even with the trans-boundary agreement, things have not actually touched. Thank you.
Thank you. I think as far as I know, the stress or the thrust on solving the issues or lessening the impact of climate change is having excellent great attention from the government now. As you know, as you mentioned, Malaysia will be the chairman of ASEAN in 2025. That is officially, but I think as November, I think unofficially we are already chairman or the chair of ASEAN. So I think come November, it is COP29, and Malaysia is representing in quite a huge manner in Azerbaijan, in Baku, Azerbaijan, with his own pavilion and so on. And the issues that we mentioned here are indeed on the agenda. In fact, more extensive than that, including climate financing and investment, bio investment and all that. You know? So I think the direction that Malaysia is moving, and of course SUHAKAM is supporting as well. We will also be involved in COP29. So I think action is needed, and I think the list of actions have already been laid out. Thank you.
Anthony, I think like next year, the leadership position will be a good time to encourage the Malaysian government to be committing more and to not just commit and to take action on more ambitious changes. So, Tengku has mentioned earlier also about the recommendation from Malaysia to take the lead in the ASEAN countries to call for an update of the ASEAN agreement on Haze. So where before, people describe the ASEAN agreement as having no teeth, now we installed a set of benches into that, a strong one. So the recommendation here, I think it's recommendation 4, actually suggests the addition of a protocol to the ASEAN agreement, which is called a supplemental. So that will then, and the suggestion here is for Malaysia to suggest to all the other ASEAN countries, because we got ASEAN way, right? Where we say like, okay, what happens in your country, we don't want to affect the sovereignty and we respect each other so much. So So what every country to commit to holding their own businesses that do business overseas to account, to respect human rights, and to really take action against transboundary pollution, haze pollution, wherever they do business. And then for every country, whether it's Singapore, whether it's Indonesia, whether it's Brunei, they commit to the same, to have in their own jurisdiction laws and mechanisms to hold their own businesses to account. So then regionally, if we do that reciprocally, then all countries adopt at the ASEAN level a treaty. We say, yes, we promise to each other, we will take care of our own businesses and make sure that they are responsible corporate citizens. And then we will translate that commitment at the regional level into our own national level, into laws. So that then all companies that are registered with us, they are under this law. So then, we have the problem with transnational companies is they shop around for jurisdiction to move their companies. They can move out. It's not so, like Tesla say, oh, bye-bye, we're going somewhere else, right? So I think that would be a way to take leadership from Malaysia to say, hey, rule of law, health is important, SDGs are important. The other one is to say that, hey, we are going to amend our constitution because we prioritize a safe and healthy environment. That would be another way to also demonstrate internationally. So the commitment of Malaysia to, whether it's climate change commitments, UNFCCC, whether it's SDGs, I think the constitutional amendment will be a very strong demonstration of the actual profound reform at the country level. So that's two very solid ways. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions you want to ask? Okay, we have, yeah. We have a gentleman here first.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Okay, morning to the speakers of the panel and even audiences. My name is Carl Moore, actually, and I'm from Patuaram. I think it's aware now that there's a plan actually for 18 units of incinerator over Malaysia, and one of them is in my hometown, Patuaram. Right? I'm actually a resident. The residents will be staying just about 800 meters away, not even a kilometers from the site of the incinerator. Right? I'm also a member of the project committee which are formed, right? And our objective is actually to appeal to the authorities, right? To withdraw the proposal for the greenhouse incinerator, which is so very near to the residents. And also, that proposed site is actually ex-mining land, right? We have coal reserve underneath this one for about 15 kilometers, and my house was burned by underground fire, right? So, but in this case here, it has to do with the air quality, right? There's two questions I want to ask the panel of the SUHAKAM. Number one, in general, how could my project committee, United Patuaram, right, position as a kawan, or what we call eco-friendly people, right? How could you help us in this case to sort of help us to achieve our objective of like getting the authority, mainly the state government, to drop the proposals, number one. And number two, we have a coming rally coming on, right? And our side is MPS, Selayang, right? We have got two representatives from Greenpeace, which they represent a representative, right? In this case, how could Sky help in our rally is coming on the 1st of October? That's my two questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This is regarding, I think, local air pollution. Okay, yeah. Any response?
What's your second question again?
The second question is, Greenpeace, two representatives of Greenpeace is coming to help us in the rally on the 1st of October. So in this case, how can Sukara help in this particular protest?
It's something like how to support, how to add value in all this movement to stop air pollution.
We have two Greenpeace members coming in physically, right, to join us in the rally. I don't know whether we can have some legal what we call team coming in on the side of a lawyer or a representative who's got support from SUHAKAM to build up our force. We have something about 100 people, right, from around, from Rawang. We have these people coming in. We have got Bobby, a couple of human rights lawyers coming in to help us, right? We have just got the approval from the police, right, that we can actually go and hold the rally. So in terms of building up the crowds or something, I don't know. Maybe you can advise us. Thank you.
I think part of SUHAKAM's core roles is to receive complaints. And I think the issue of this incinerator that you raised, causing problems to the local environment and communities, are indeed within the ambit of the SUHAKAM's area of, receiving those complaints. So firstly, I think what you can do is to forward your complaint to SUHAKAM in writing, or orally, but preferably in writing, so that SUHAKAM can bring this forward to the relevant authorities or government agencies. The reason is that SUHAKAM has only got, under the law, SUHAKAM has only got secondary power. We don't have the enforcement powers. The enforcement powers will still be with those government agencies and authorities. Coming to the other point about assisting you in, through demonstration, through support of the demos and all that, there are limitations there for SUHAKAM. I think those are the provinces where NGOs and CSOs can assist you. But of course, the moral support, as far as SUHAKAM is concerned, we will definitely, give insofar as it's legal within our act. So I think this issue is very important to the community, and I urge that you send a report of your complaint to SUHAKAM. SUHAKAM's complaint is, it could come from any aggrieved persons or group of persons. So this is one of those cases. Maybe my colleague, Mr. Q, will have something to say.
Yeah, I think in terms of solidarity among civil society organizations and NGOs, I think it's great that Greenpeace is there already, but I think there's never too much solidarity, because it does take a lot of different expertise and knowledge to piece things together to really just sharpen the critique and the framing of the problems, and I think where you would be thinking, I believe, I'm sure you're also thinking about your campaigns will also be targeting different areas as well. So one will be the government approval angle. I'm sure you also even one you've already acted on, which is acting on who is financing this, bringing pressure to the banks, the investors, the shareholders, asking them, are they satisfied with ESG due diligence exercises? Are they satisfied with the impacts of this? What the proponents of the project have told them about the impacts of this project, and how the cost-benefit analysis from an ROI perspective, are the investors satisfied with it? Bearing in mind their commitments to the public to invest in responsibly. So that would be an important angle. Of course, that's another important angle. And with the government, there are also many different levels. There's a local government angle, there's a state government angle, so the developmental order. There are other agencies whether they are also satisfied that it's going to respect your right to keep air, right? For communities living as close as we do, are they satisfied? Is it safe? To what standard? Is it good? Right? And how are they satisfied? So, and what, if people suffer harm, what are the recourses that is in place? Have they considered this? To ask them to articulate. These are useful ways to then help to build the campaign.
Okay, thank you. We have a questions from there. Okay, please.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the presentation for the launch of this report. My name is Shantini from WWF Malaysia. If I may be permitted, I have two questions to you. First, thank you so much for actually highlighting the predatory nature of some of the provisions in our constitution. Now, within that context, my first question is this. As we are embarking towards developing our 13th Malaysia Plan, what are some of the fundamental overarching economic policies that can help anchor our trajectory towards greater sustainability, addressing not just transboundary haze or air pollution, but environmental development as a whole? Because we see that there is a growing movement along the lines of real GDP and trying to move the economic growth or progress along the lines of beyond religious sense. I just wanted to get your 2 cents as to how we can position our 13th Malaysia Plan with an overarching framework to enable true sustainable development. That's my first question. And my second question is, thank you for highlighting the 6 recommendations. And the call to action, or the call really here, is to urge legislatures or governments for the amendments of the Federal Constitution or even the rules of court, and even to urge civil society at large to echo the call. Now, my question is with respect to how do we translate these calls into action? So how can we collectively, as civil society or even as members of Malaysia, move towards actualizing this call? And are there any plans between the parties who have helped prepare this report? Thank you very much.
I'm not so sure about your first question. Action, how to go about to move forward in reaching the relevant authorities to sort of be in line, or to look into the problems, the environment problems that you mentioned. Now that we have the NRES, or the Natural Resources, Environmental and Sustainability Ministry, I think one of their roles now is to look into this. And I think your way forward, I should say, is to bring your concerns to bodies like SUHAKAM and other CSOs and the NGOs to look into the specific issues that you want to address. These are the channels, I suppose, as far as I can see. Correct me if I'm wrong, actually. On the second issue about legislation and all that, SUHAKAM, as far as SUHAKAM is concerned, we are already involved with the government, the relevant section of the government, in particular the legal division of the Prime Minister's Department, or bahagian hal ehwal undang-undang, under the PM Department, on this environmental, that includes environmental as well, and also the powers of the Attorney General, and also the potential creation of the Malaysian Ombudsman. So these are the bodies that may be relevant to look into future legislations. I think the feel now is that it's positive, and our young YP Minister, Sri Azalina, she's the Minister of Law Reform as well. She's seriously looking into this. In fact, she has made a move, towards reforming or amending the relevant laws in Malaysia.
Shantini's question about preparing and thinking ahead with our 13th Malaysian Plan, I think that's really important. It's an opportunity for the government to set a better agenda, developmental agenda that's better than the previous 12th Malaysian Plan. Especially, the agenda is a change agenda from what you can move houses pretty very well from an exploitative development paradigm to one that is more sustainable. So the Ministry of Economy that's developing the 13th Malaysian Plan, you don't need to wait for an actual amendment of the federal constitution to recognize the right, every person's right to a safe, clean, and healthy environment. Malaysia has already committed to that at the UN General Assembly, right, in 2022. So we've, as a country, as a people, we've already committed to it. So in our 13th Malaysian Plan, we should then action that into our plan, right? Because we agree that's the North Star. We agree that it doesn't make sense to break so many things and then promise to fix them later. Because we'll fix for very few, and there are a lot of things that are actually harms that are very difficult to articulate and very difficult to compensate for. And there are things that simply cannot be fixed by mere compensation. So we understand that, right? So the Ministry of Economy understands that, which is why it's also pursuing the SDG agenda. So I think the 13th Malaysian Plan commitment to how do we action the duty, right? That right, everyone having a right to a clean and healthy environment is one side of the coin. That coin can only be real when on the other side is a duty on everyone, right? Whether you're a government, whether you're a private sector, whether you're a private person, a duty to protect and to improve the environment. So rights and duties. Rights are only real when everyone else bears duty, right? So that can be translated into our 13th Malaysian Plan when it comes to our economic development, right? So I think when we are talking about we see YB Rafizi Ramli, Ministry of Economy, pushing for a lot of green economy agenda. We must be very clear because it's very familiar to fall back into the old exploitative paradigm, right? Because those are existing. We don't exist in the field, so we have to consciously deconstruct some of these, how we measure, how we define growth, and how we measure progress. I think we need to improve that. We shouldn't just look at the dollars and cents, right? We also need to be better at looking at the data in terms of well-being, in terms of biodiversity, health, in terms of equity and justice. Right? So these things also need to go into our national dashboard in terms of, so we need to define growth and development in a richer, more holistic way, to measure performance in a richer, more holistic way. So the Malaysian CSO SDG Alliance, which is a network of civil society organizations in Malaysia, did submit a recommendation, an input paper to the government of Malaysia, Ministry of Economy, as part of the midterm review of our 12th Malaysian Plan. And in there, we called for the government to actively go beyond GDP in terms of defining and measuring progress. So that midterm review exercise then resulted in the agenda, this beyond GDP agenda, being identified by the government as one of the key initiatives for the acceleration of Malaysia's SDGs. So the Prime Minister adopted this one of the 9 key initiatives under the, to hasten how we are doing the SDGs. One of it is to say, yeah, we should be more serious about the beyond GDP perspective. And so I think one of the ways in terms of the 13th Malaysia Plan is to encourage, so for, what does it mean to define and measure growth in a broader sense, in a richer sense? So one person cannot see everything. The whole colorful tapestry of society is, this whole fabric of society is multi-textural, multi-colored, and that's the beauty of Malaysia. So a civic society that is active, a civic space that is active is really important so that the different communities can put out their views, their context, their realities, and their hopes for what is the future, what is a dignified life, what is a good life. So then we can all contribute towards this definition of what is the better life in the economic development machinery. Then we're going to improve. Then we're going to leave behind our old predatory type of development and move towards development that is more sensitive, that is more appropriate to people and.
Okay, thank you. We have a groups at the back.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, panel, for your presentation. Our names are Zidek Siu and Sharon Chin. We are residents of Port Nixon, Negeri Sembilan, and we live with lessening dignity under the shadow of the Hengan refining companies. It's a huge petroleum plant. We have been facing increasing and constant air, sound, light, and smell pollution. And we have a few questions for the panel. One is in terms of how will the proposed or the suggested Clean Air Act be different from current regulations in substance? And whatever the difference is, how would enforcement be ensured? Well, one of the problems that we have faced is that there are current regulations that regulate the refinery, but for example, in terms of decibel, exceeding decibel count or exceeding the smoke intensity under the Ringelmann scale, they do often exceed those regulations. But enforcement is quite difficult because when we make complaints, the DOE officers will attend, but they often don't have the manpower to put the machines or the meters to detect these on their own devices. So the enforcement is quite. We have found that enforcement is quite difficult because of manpower issues.
Yes, and also following on from that question, the second question is also related to the disconnect between the plans and the laws and the reality on the ground faced by local communities. So we see the Haze as maybe once every few years, there are these zones of sacrifice that exist when there is no Haze. But when the Haze comes, these zones of sacrifice extend to encompass the entire country. One strategy that we have found is in collecting enough evidence, visual evidence about air pollution. And we have found it very useful to use technology, widely available low-cost CCTVs. And we find that this feedback is very important to close the disconnect between the authorities and perhaps enforcement actions and maybe policymakers. So my question is there a way in the provisions or recommendations to include the use of technology to close this feedback gap between local reality and plans and policies? Thank you.
I'll just say generally first, I think my friend Q can elaborate. But as was mentioned earlier, there are gaps. As Q in there are gaps in our law at the moment. So issues such as specific environmental grievances that you mentioned, regarding on this refinery, oil refinery in PG, creating air pollution and so on. Well, I'm not an environmental lawyer, so I do not know whether at present there is such a course of action under the Environmental Quality Act. I'm not sure. But as far as I know, there are lots of uncertainty at the moment. So that's why we need climate change, Clean Air Act or something, to address these issues. But the other point is the accountability and responsibility of the authorities, specifically the Malaysian government, on these issues, because they should be responsible. And I think, as far as I know, certain ministries are really looking into this aspect. For example, the MOSTI, Ministry of Science and Technology. I think they are aware that the policy should be to be a responsible government. So I think if we can strengthen our laws, whole things will complement one another. I can comment to that extent because I'm not an expert on it. I'm going to leave you and add something.
Thanks, neither do I dare to claim myself to be an expert, because I think the first thing is these are new things for the country, for the people in the country. I've never thought about how a legal system should address climate change. But let me just get to the first question: how will the Clean Air Act make a difference? So currently how the government, we through the government regulate and govern air quality is through the Environmental Quality Act 1974. So the air is one of the things that the agency is responsible, which is the Department of Environment. It is responsible to regulate pollution and point sources. That means where the factories are, where the vehicles are, where the engines are. So these points are regulated. That means what comes out. So then these categories of things are regulated. And now they are regulated in the sense like they are told that okay, this is the limit that you can pollute. Who's regulating the cumulative impact of all the allowed pollution? The cumulative, how much in total? And is it okay? Is it a safe level? So that isn't regulated. So that is what is called an ambient air quality. That means this includes ambient air. This indoor air quality is an ambient air quality. Is you walk out the hotel, that's ambient air quality. So that's not a particular point source. And that means DOE isn't directly measuring that quality of the ambient air in here. Ismail or Darren Robinson or Batwara. So the Clean Air Act would be what is being suggested in this report would be to first again declare the purpose of the Clean Air Act, because the purpose must be to protect health, right? So Environmental Quality Act 1974, the country's agenda was really on, we need to compete, we need to become, grow our economy, we need to support our industries, we need a new nation, right? We need to grow those things. So prioritization was such that, right? So it was about controlling pollution. But now, we've gone through tremendous amounts of development. Our people are of higher quality. Our people are of higher quality. So when we know better, we can do better. So the Clean Air Act would be that the purpose of the Clean Air Act would be to protect public health, respect the right to clean air of everyone, and then to set standards about what is a safe level, what do we agree, and then that standard will be a duty that all government agencies, as well as non-government agencies, organizations, will then need to respect. That's a standard, and then have force of law. It's a duty to meet that. Now, it won't be easy, but perhaps a phased approach. So phase 1, meet the standard. Phase 2, 5 years later or 3 years later, meet the standard, and then etc. Right? So, because right now the pollution controlling regime that we have doesn't keep track of all the different types of pollutants that are in the air. It keeps track of a finite list of pollutants. So other things we don't know. Total amount we don't know. So we need to do that, and that is, from a climate change perspective. If you imagine the whole climate change action, climate action pressure, Malaysia also needs to inventorize, in terms of how much greenhouse gas emissions there are to the global economy as part of it. Well, how do you say net zero if you don't know what is being emitted and you don't know what is being sequestered? So having a air quality governance regime like that is comprehensive is also necessary for us to meet our climate change commitments. If we are serious about this commitments, because we don't bother counting, we don't bother governing, then we're not demonstrating that we're serious about climate change action. And as a nation that is very keen on selling carbon credits have no credibility if you don't have a clean air regime. So that's another angle in terms of persuading those in power, those who are very keen to trade in carbon credits, that they also need to be part of this internal reforms to make these things. Then only they can support that market that is healthy and a real market, and not a sham market, where carbon credits have dubious value. So it's a bit of a Clean Air Act. I think on enforcement was a question, right? I think it's still to say. So it is because current regime, the DOE is responsible. DOE only has this many officers and boots on the ground, right? So in the Haze complaint that the Sharia Coalition submitted, we look at DOE's annual report on the types of environmental complaints that they receive. You see a chart, they'll have water complaints, other types of environmental complaints, noise also. Air is by far the highest amount of complaint that DOE receives. Air quality is consistently the winner in terms of types of complaints that they receive. It is very difficult to regulate, and it's very expensive. It's very expensive because the way we structure, the way we structure the regulatory regime, the DOE has to go there and test the air and then take action and investigate. So if it's like that, then the bottleneck is the manpower of DOE, right? So having a Clean Air Act where we then impose a burden, that would then open up that avoid that bottleneck. So that's one way to go about that. Enforcement is again, enforcement is where the complainants need to be they feel empowered to actually say, there's a complaint. They must have data, as you mentioned. Information is also right. I think it's like you smell something funny, then you fall ill. You don't know whether it's related, right? Unless you have information about that can help you connect the dots. Who's going to feed you that information? So a healthy civic space, a healthy community, healthy, groups around you, around your vicinity would help you connect the dots. Because, what a civic group is basically people who care about, who care. So the more people who care, and the more they are organized and articulate, then the better we are at connecting the dots, then the better we are in communicating and engaging and complaining in a constructive way. Because if we complain in a non-constructive way, then we're going to be ignored, we're going to be dismissed, we won't get far. So if we can articulate, then we can bring it to, so then what then does enforcement look like? So the traditional enforcement will be to use the criminal justice system. That means you rely on the power of the law where they will take action on it. You will complain to DOE, DOE will investigate, their officers will then go and find out, and then when suitable they will then refer for prosecution. Right? So that's the criminal justice system. There's another way to hold someone accountable, which is the civil justice system. That means you is powered by yourself, you will go to court. Right? You build your course of action, gather your evidence, build your case, hire your lawyer, and go to court. Right? So that's why earlier we said that ease of holding to account, just like ease of doing business, like all the Asian tigers, we focus really on we're going to improve ease of doing business, form a company, get a loan, access to market. All these are really important for building economy. But to build a healthy society, ease of holding to account is also important. To have a good economy where polluters pay. Because if polluters pay, then the entrepreneurs will realize better the landscape, and then they will say, oh, let's not do business in this way, because then we still have to pay for it. Does it make sense? But if we don't have to pay for it, then the economy is faulty, right? It doesn't pay, so the cost, so there's no so-called invisible hand doesn't work, right? There's no equilibrium. So access to data, healthy civil society space, being able to bring your own action instead of relying on the investigator and then the prosecutor to actually do something about it, for which you won't be compensated because it is only about jail time and fines. The fine doesn't go to the person who suffered harm. So you still need a civil justice system that is healthy and easy for people, right? Earlier we already said, people who stand to suffer are very often people who are marginalized communities. And their challenge in accessing justice is a lot higher than us. Language, just ability to articulate it in the way that the courts want and dictate. All these are real challenges. Hiring a lawyer, having experts that can articulate how this funny smell equals to this, equals to what is coming out from your smokestack, and how this is linked to my health, which is, and then there's a time gap between me breathing that in and kind of thing that manifests in my body. And by the way, I'm also, if I happen to have other kinds of comorbidities, then attributing, so all that is a challenge. I think, sorry, you want to add something? Maybe to go.
Of course, very articulate, explanation by So I think by extension, you have to find the bridges, So the bridges, as mentioned by you, is perhaps through the environmental, department of environment and so on. But insofar as carbon credit is concerned, Malaysia's English is not that good at the moment, and I think the government is aware of this. So, at the coming COP29, they will negotiate this, because the idea of COP is not just to talk, but to negotiate for, climate investment. In order to have a more clean environment in our country. So that's the role of the government. And the light at the end of the tunnel here is that the government is aware of this and they're doing something about it, including, I think, the introduction of the Clean Air Act, because there are limitations, as I understand, under the Environmental Quality Act. So now the judicial redress is rather difficult. So perhaps the non-judicial step is maybe slightly easier through all these like CSOs, NGOs, and so on. And I also know that our government is being advised by experts on, say, issue of stratosphere, especially on methane gas, which sort of make it easier for the environment, the stratosphere, I don't know whether that's correct, will make the air around the globe becoming much warmer quicker, So even this is being advised to the government now by bodies who are experts on this issue. So the consciousness of that, and I think the hope is that, or the tenor is that, it's positive. So it's just finding ways of negotiating on this, and at the moment the picture is not yet complete, but I think we should not lose hope. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think to Dr. Tengku, I think the last message is important. Do not lose hope. I think we still have some of the people who want to raise a question. Maybe just make a quick one. I think it's all other people raise a question and then later you answer by.
I come from Kuala Lumpur. I'm from an NGO, also the local NGO. Since the year 2018, everybody know Kuala Lumpur affected badly by the two plastic waste. But unfortunately today, we are still maintaining plastic waste up to 550,000 tons per year according to last year's record. So what I want to say is as a ground activist, I saw a lot of these pollution caused by import waste. So I want to talk about waste trade. Because this is a topic about human rights infringement. So I would like to highlight to SUHAKAM why waste trade is a human rights infringement. There's many cases which enforcement by the PDR showing that this industry involve labor exploitation. Okay. Secondly, since China banned all type of waste to import, I think more than 50% of even type like plastic or paper all come to Malaysia already. So in Kuala Lumpur, we have 3 paper recycle factory, very, very big. We are going to recycle more than 7 million tons of paper waste. Okay, along with this investment, so-called economic growth, that the environment suffering by the local people, especially is the air. Okay, so as a local NGO, we help the community to install air monitoring devices. Some data is really severe and short. That sometimes in the night time, for a few hours time, the PM 2.5 is up to 100. Okay, this one's up to 800 and 1,000. I can show the data to all. So here I would like SUHAKAM to maybe to consider one thing in the future. Thailand already announced they will ban plastic waste import since year 2020-25. When is our turn, Malaysia? Now we are openly very wide to use waste import, which gradually I think is another transboundary, not has transboundary toxic in the air to Malaysia. And this is long term and it's happening and it's very, very serious. The schools surrounding the paper industry now suffer the PM 2.5 every day. But in Malaysia, we are not accessible to the real-time PM 2.5 from the authorities. True. So if like this, the community or the NGO like us is very difficult, like to have a better communication with the authority, to have the authority to do their job. For example, JS already works very hard helping the Kuala Lumpur to get rid of the pollution. But unfortunately, we see the environment getting worse. It's because we have such a terrible policy that we still allow import of wastes from developed countries. I will say that, okay, in my end of my suggestion, I would like to say, during colonial period, Malaysia lost a lot of our natural resources to developed countries. Today, we lost our future, our life, our environment, because we accept their waste to come to Malaysia. Thank you.
Yeah, we do. We are not just have trans-boundary haze pollution. Now we are also having air pollution caused by trans-boundary waste pollution. Okay, thank you for highlighting that. So, the next gentleman.
Yeah, I'm Mr. Wong here. Actually, I'm resident of Rasa, Roslau. So, I'm a resident there for 30 years. Okay. So right now, what is our issue there is local government is encouraging foreign direct investment from China, where they invest, they buy a factories over there, and then do something like illegal burning in scopers. So the haze and the funny smell is every day. It's not only 1 day, 2 days, it's every day. So I'm a resident over there. We have a group of people. We go for what is it? Local authorities like Malaysia, DOE. What they come back to us is they always say the case is set aside, the case is set aside. But then in the end, their factory is getting bigger and bigger. And then right now, our villages is surrounded all by this Chinese company where they are growing bigger and bigger. We don't know what we should do. So my question here is, what can we do as a residents? Because we go for authorities, they just simply, you talk about the air qualities, right? They just simply put a machine over there that test in daytime. When they put a machine over there, but then the factory is there, is not running. So that's a problem for us. It's every day.
Okay, yeah, this is more on the factory, the air pollution from the factory, and also the way of working of that. Yeah, that is also important. Okay, next one, Hui or Hui.
I just quickly want to summarize. We need to be very careful about Chinese investments. I think we all can remember before the Beijing Olympics how much effort China put into making their skies clean. They asked the industries to stop because before that they never saw blue skies. So they closed down the industries, clean it up so that they can see blue skies. Guess where all the industries are moving to? They're moving to Southeast. They have moved to Southeast Asia and they are still coming. Incinerators, I haven't studied it, but most likely joint venture with Chinese companies. Rasa factory owned by Chinamen. Waste paper recycling factory owned by Chinamen, Chinese large companies. Illegal e-waste factories throughout Klang and Kuala Lumpur, Chinese owned. Penguin, Chinese owned. And we have so many lithium-ion batteries, China-owned factories coming here. So we really need to be careful that our skies do not become like Beijing 10 years ago. I would like to suggest maybe Chera could move from looking at haze to local air pollution, and perhaps SUHAKAM and Chera can lead a platform for all of us who are fighting all these individual fights to come together and see how we can provide evidence to seriously push for a right to a healthy environment in the federal constitution, push for change the rules of God, push for a Clean Air Act, and further on, maybe even bring a proper case to court, because now we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the resources. How can we pool our knowledge and resources? maybe SUHAKAM. This is only the first step. With One Belt, One Road and China looking south, we have a big fight on our hands to protect our clean air. That's all, thanks.
Sorry, I want to add on. Is our site, my base is not only owned by China. There's one factory, it's called E-Fast Industry. It's also owned by a royal family. When we complain, and then they send someone to threaten us, for us, or come out, have a tea, then say, why this, why that, why this, why that. So, you know, our house, we have air purifier. The index that AQI is more than 180. It's totally red and stated unhealthy. It's multi-million company with things that air purifier and DOE is not accept our data and our evidence. So we don't know what to do.
Okay, yeah, this is another, like what we highlighted was developed country, they just push their investment to Southeast Asian country. Like what we can see, like a lot of developed countries claim that they are protecting environment, they are clean. Actually, they are moving their businesses, their dirty businesses to Southeast Asian countries. So we need to work hard. I can tell you, by looking with them, I can see that they are more increased, they are more and more big polluters, businesses are moving to Southeast Asia. I'm actually scaring you. To be honest, I'm scaring you. I want you to be angry, I want you to be aware, I want you to take action. So later we can talk about this again. I think we get other questions.
Good morning. My name is Yan Sanyo. I am Executive Director of Greenpeace Southeast Asia. I am from the Philippines. Thank you, Fauzi, Jael. It's wonderful to see you again. Obviously, we're very happy to see the launch of this report, so congratulations for that and for your presentations today. You presented really strong recommendations, and I think I just want to mention that in 2015, you mentioned 2015 as a serious year for Haze here in Malaysia. But in 2015 was also a year that 12 organizations in the Philippines and 18 individuals, including myself, filed a petition with the Philippines Commission on Human Rights, the counterpart of SUHAKAM in the Philippines. Now it's a very celebrated case where the CHR of the Philippines found 47 investor-owned companies morally and legally liable for human rights violations as a result of their business activities. These are fossil fuel companies, cement companies, and gas companies. So I see that this report, your strong recommendations, even amending the Constitution, regulations, changing the rules of court, SDG targets, as well as ASEAN protocols. My question really is about, do you think that with a lot of mention of predatory interests and vested interests, do you think we can pursue the possibility of finding entities, and we've been hearing about different sources of pollution here, whether it's point sources or more large-scale sources. Do you think you can pursue the possibility of finding entities behind all of these different kinds of air pollution, morally and legally liable? I mean, based on your work in SUHAKAM, maybe Jael, your insights as well, on the aspect of justiciability. Because the theory of change we think we work on in Greenpeace is that ASEAN might be too slow. The COP in Baku, which is part of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, it might be too slow. Individuals might be too little. And so we're doing a lot of climate litigation and a lot of litigation pieces. I'm helping lead the climate litigation work of Greenpeace globally. And also, we also know that the other possible key to more faster action is building political constituency. So my question is two-part: the justiciability part. And do you think moral and legal liability is possible with entities behind pollution? And also, what is your sense of optimism that not just this report, but the overall push for accountability can translate into energizing the movement in Malaysia also translate into political issues, serious political issues that political leaders would pay attention to. I'm genuinely curious because I'm serving from a distance as an ASEAN neighbor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yaps. Any other? Or still have more?
I'm just going to add up a bit in terms of what Yap just mentioned. Malaysia is going to take the lead for becoming ASEAN in this coming December. So, where's the direction for SUHAKAM in terms of incorporating many of these regulatory issues that we're facing as well? Because this is more of an ASEAN chapter now.
Okay, any others? Okay, Mr. Gula.
Okay, good morning. Tunggu, saya nak beritahu saya nama Guna Segera, datang dari Sungai Petani Kedah. Saya ada buat 2 polis report semasa kerana jerebu. Tapi the time ada buat polis report 2. Pada masa itu satu Prime Minister Dato' Seri Najib Tun Razak 1. The second police report saya ada buat pada masa Dato' Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad become the second Prime Minister. Okay, Mr. SUHAKAM, saya nak tanya contoh. Saya punya soalan, semasa jerebu saya ada buat polis report, kerajaan Malaysia tidak ada ambil apa-apa tindakan kepada Indonesia. Apa yang saya dapat tahu pada masa itu, jerebu ini datang daripada Indonesia, bukan di Malaysia. Okey, kerajaan Malaysia tidak ada ambil apa-apa tindakan di atas Indonesia. Saya bukan adun, saya bukan parlimen, wakil parlimen itu tak ada. Kerana apa kerajaan Malaysia tidak ambil satu tindakan kepada kerajaan Indonesia? Tunggu, tolong jawabkan soalan saya di sini juga. Saya harus amat sedih pada masa itu. Nobody will support me. I'm just ordinary man, the small businessman. Why kerajaan Malaysia tidak ada ambil satu tindakan kepada Indonesia, dan juga adakah kerajaan Malaysia hantar saman kepada kerajaan Indonesia? Saman, kod saman. Kalau tak ada, bolehkah saman ini saya sekarang boleh hantar kepada saya dan sue the Indonesian government by legal action? Kerana saya ada bukti-bukti yang semua ada di tangan saya, Tuku. Satu kerajaan Malaysia tidak sue kepada Indonesia, bolehkah saya hantar satu notis saman kepada Indonesia, kerajaan Indonesia, Tuku?
Okay, thank you. You want to respond?
Ya, saya respon. Pada Cik apa nama?
Guna Segeren from Sungai Petani Kedah. Guna Segeren Musliman.
Ya, ada 2 aspek soalan tu. Yang pertama pasal kenapa kerajaan Malaysia tidak ambil tindakan apa-apa terhadap kerajaan Indonesia. Jadi sini ini berkaitan dengan polisi lah. Polisi kerajaan ini bukan actually saya cakap pasal polisi. Ini pasal polisi. Polisi kerajaan, saya faham lah, saya difahamkan, dia tak mau apa kita panggil ambil tindakan yang tidak apa kita panggil tidak not friendly lah. Dia not friendly. Jadi dia suka guna apa tu persuasion dulu, cakap, discuss, engage dengan kerajaan Indonesia dan sebagainya. Itu dari segi polisi. Jadi dia berlandas kepada itu, dia tidak akan setakat ni lah, dia tidak akan ambil action directly kepada kerajaan Indonesia lah. Dan apa tu kedua, section perkara kedua yang you mention tu, pasal can you take action directly to the Indonesian government kepada kerajaan Indonesia. Saya ingat itu setahu saya lah, mungkin boleh tapi you kena guna Indonesia lawyer.
Indonesia lawyer, not in our local.
Tapi ini transboundary lah saya sebab ini menjadi di Malaysia. Jadi ini kena
tunggu tolong dapatkan tahu the issue from the Indonesia, not from Malaysia to Indonesia. The issue is the Indonesian. Dan jerubu ni datang dari Indonesia. Bukan kami bakar hutang-hutang yang ada di sini di Malaysia. Ada pada masa itu mereka bakar hutang-hutang.
Saya faham.
Hutang di sana, mereka yang the sector, the businessmen go there and buy the land. Mereka yang tubuhkan jerubu, bakar hutan. Okay, that means kerajaan Indonesia yang mesti mau ambil tindakan. Apa yang pada masa itu saya tanya di Indonesia, kerajaan Indonesia, dia kata, orang-orang businessmen coming from Indonesia, from Malaysia, mereka beli tanah di sana, mereka lah yang buat bakar tanah-tanah hutan itu menyembuhkan jerubu. Not our Malaysia, they say what? Indonesia tidak buat kerja ini. They say like Malaysia, temporary, go there, purchase the land. Mereka buat untuk pertanian sebagai kelapa sawit ke apa yang saya nampak. I got the last 10 days ago, banyak kelapa sawit. Ini semua tauke-tauke daripada Malaysia, bukan tauke-tauke daripada Indonesia.
Saya faham.
Yang stay ini,
saya ingat ini macam Mr. Q sebut tadi.
Yes.
Dia ada dua landasan. Pertama jenayah dari segi jenayah, kedua dari segi civil.
Ya.
Dan ini civil lah, nampaknya civil.
This case like
kalau nak
sure lah.
Jadi kalau nak buat report polis dan sebagainya, saya ingat susah sikit lah.
Saya sudah buat polis report. Dulu pada masa itu sudah ada. Saya sudah bagi satu kepada.
Jadi dari segi civil, mungkin Mr. boleh guna lawyer Malaysia, dakwa company Malaysia lah di sini di Malaysia. Saya pun tak tahu lagi. Kita tanya litigation expert lah.
Ya, tunggu.
Itu pendapat.
Yes, itu tunggu. Pakai SUHAKAM. Bolehkah analyze syarikat-syarikat mana yang bakar yang tanah sana tu? SUHAKAM boleh second for me?
Boleh. Kita boleh menerima report. Report kat SUHAKAM.
I think, Mr. Gunnar, I think we talked this before. I think that is also the reason why we launched this SUHAKAM report. Mungkin ini akan lebih berguna lah pada masa akan datang. Itu sebab kita kena ada program macam ni lah untuk ada.
Understand. Jangan kita dilama-lamakan. Nanti lama jadi tidak no aktif lah.
Yes.
Benda apa pun mesti mau ambil cepat.
Yes,
apa pun jangan begitu saja. Hari itu juga 2 kes, jangan datang lagi 3, 4, 5. Sekolah sini pun banyak tutup hari itu.
Mr. Segara.
Ya tu.
Boleh saya cuba jawab soalan lain sikit-sikit sebab masa terhad sekarang.
Okey, terima kasih, itu saja.
We can have a follow-up discussion.
Ya itu saja. Terima kasih banyak.
Okay, I think I think the last two. Quick one, 1 minute.
Good morning, everyone. I think this report actually started with the pollution, especially targeting on the plantation or the open up the land for development, right? But then after that, listening to others' comments and inputs, I think we need to broaden the scope, not only targeting on the Haze because of the land use change, right? And the other thing is from Mr. Gunnar. Actually, I'm Srina Liu from Global Environment Center, part of the team to support ASEAN Agreement transferring Haze pollution in the ASEAN platform. GCA has been the technical and operational support to the ASEAN member state and also ASEAN Secretary on this issue. We have been following for more than 20 years now. So untuk tadi komen daripada Mr. Guna, masalah Indonesia dengan Malaysia, masa kita sentuh perkara zero group, itu jadi sensitif, gaduh, okay? Malaysia government actually sent a love letter. I use love letter, it's quite long. Sent to Indonesia, but then Indonesia minister give the remarks saying that they have 6 companies operating in Indonesia. So we also have the discussion in the Jabatan Alam Kita. So ask them to accountable for all they need to report where they have the shares in the plantations in Indonesia. I think Jaya is also was also in the discussion the other day in the Ministry Office. This is something that environment is actually cross-sectoral issues. It's not only plantation, it's not only the haze we have. Why we have the haze? Where is the root cause? Perdagangan, pertanian, right? So we need to talk to these ministries as well. It's a cross-sectoral ministries issues. We cannot just targeting on the environment development because they only attack the haze. Sudah berlaku kebakaran baru ada jeruk. Tapi macam mana kita boleh mencegah kebakaran yang berlaku yang akan mengakibatkan jeruk? These are the things that we need to think. We are not only targeting on okay, this is the issue, we need to target this issue, but what is the root causes? We don't always forget about the root cause. If we just target the haze, we won't solve the problem 50 years down the road. It's actually the same. Malaysia cannot take actions against Indonesian companies, that for sure. Because at the moment, we don't have that platform yet. Singapore tried to have one, but they cannot. I don't want to say fail, but at the moment, no success case yet, right? So I think we need to take our responsibility as the citizens in Malaysia, citizens in this world. We don't have planet B, we only have this planet. Government to recognize citizens' eyes. We have so many evidence, we have so many inputs from the citizens. Why government not recognize it? Why it's not valid? This one also I don't understand. Because we try to do our job for a better living environment. So maybe we also need to educate the government agencies, the officers, what we can do for ourselves for a better living. Not only like depending on enforcement, we know that enforcement always tak cukup orang, tak cukup kaki tangan, tak cukup budget. So we do our part. Government need to recognize and appreciate our effort as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sari. Last one, Suresh, quick 1 minute, 59 seconds.
Okay, thanks. Probably we choose Malay because I think we reach wider audience. Okay, selamat pagi kepada semua. Saya Suresh daripada Biro Alam Sekitar, Parti Sosialis Malaysia. Saya ucapkan penghargaan kepada kajian ini dan pembentangan report ini sebab kita lihat masalah haze telah lama tapi baru ada ini. So, thanks for the initiative. Dan kemudian saya juga kenal beberapa kawan-kawan di sini daripada komuniti setempat yang mengalami masalah pencemaran udara dan sebagainya. Dan juga saya dengar banyak tadi yang bercakap. Pada pendapat saya, ya, kita dapati kita ada kajian-kajian akademik, kita ada pengumpulan data dan sebagainya yang memang kita harus lakukan dan bagus. Tetapi juga saya rasa daripada soalan-soalan yang dikemukakan tadi, saya rasa ada yang apa yang saya lihat kekurangan adalah berkenaan dengan penguasaan masyarakat setempat, empowering the local people. Itu saya tengok kebanyakannya tak ada. Dan apabila kita sangat berharap ini pemerintah dan siapa yang policy makers ni akan buat perubahan, saya rasa itu mungkin sukar sedikit. Jadi bagaimana kita nak memastikan perubahan itu berlaku? Saya rasa kita perlu empower, kita perlu kuasakan masyarakat setempatan dan kemudian cuba bawa perubahan itu daripada bawah ke atas. Jadi soalan saya juga berdasarkan kepada apa yang disebutkan tadi adalah bagaimana report ini kita boleh bawa kepada masyarakat tempatan dan kita buat satu call to action. Macam mana kita nak kata, sekarang suara dan cara ada buat satu report. Okey, boleh tak kita bawa isu ini kepada masyarakat tempat dan kata, boleh tak sertai kami dan kita boleh buat sebegini. Apa intipati yang kita boleh gunakan daripada report ni untuk saya boleh bawa kepada masyarakat tempatan, katakan isu rawang, incinerator, macam mana saya nak pergi ke masyarakat rawang dan kata, boleh tak diorang ikut kita bawa isu ni daripada report. Itu soalan saya.
Okay, thank you, Suresh. Yeah, Tengku and Jayab, 2 minutes.
One round for me was saya ingat isu partikel pollution. Pasal plastik tadi saya ingat ini microplastic lah. Malaysia punya position globally very poor on plastics. So but the government is aware of this and try to improve. As you can see, at supermarkets now they use biodegradable plastics which can be which could be recycled. So these steps are slowly but slow, so coming to what we can do, I think macam Mr. Q mentioned tadi, dulu aspek non-judicial dan judicial aspek, tapi yang perlu adalah bukti dan data. Jadi melalui judicial agak mesti, sebab dia nak bukti yang kukuh. Non-judicial pun sama, tapi prosedur mungkin tak begitu strict lah. Jadi guna jambatan lah, melalui NGO, SUHAKAM, CSO semua tu untuk meluahkan masalah tu. Just a quick one lah, nak discuss tak ada masa. Jadi perhaps kawan saya, Mr. Q ada.
Yeah, Q, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Citizen science sangat penting, ya. Jadi data kita sendiri. Jadi walaupun secara official dia agensi kerajaan masih perlahan nak terima ataupun enggan nak terima, tetapi di platform yang lain semakin boleh pakai. Ya. So citizen science is very important. Connect with technical people into your groups. Get better and better at your data collection, and then analysis of your data, and then prepare your case studies, prepare your reports, generate these kinds of literature. It's very important across, as we can see. But again, I'm talking from a macro perspective because it's data. But for you, you're not a data point. You're a family. You're a community. You're real people having real problems today, now. So, yes, you're entitled to be angry. Mr. Gunasegran, memang marah, memang sedih, memang kecewa. And it's correct, it's the right way to feel. Because when you go and look for a lawyer who's going to help you build a case for Indonesia, suing Indonesia, your lawyer will tell you, you don't have a good case. Now, you are entitled to feel angry because it's not your case that is the problem, it's the system that is the problem. Right? So the 6 recommendations is about changing the strategic parts of the system. Yes, it is the macro picture, but this is how we use marak kita ni, api ni, kita nak gunakan api ni untuk membina penyelesaian. Ya, sebab bukan semua api itu sama. Ya, so we have to build solutions. Build solutions like dari sesi hari ini kita boleh dengar kita ada kawan-kawan ini dengan expertise yang berlainan, dengan kebolehan yang berlainan, dengan dia faham keadaan berlainan. Macam kawan dari Serena, dari GEC tadi, he can share about the ASEAN perspectives. We all benefit a lot from it. Dari apa yang strategi, dari segi diplomatik, dari segi ASEAN, apa dinamik dia. Ya. Jadi kalau kita ada rangkaian kawan-kawan sangat penting sebab ini memperkasakan kita. Ya. Kita kena memperkasakan tadi Suresh kata dari sehingga ke local level, because that's the reality, and that's the reality. Here we have all this analysis, kita ada statistik semua lah, ya. But kita nak memperkasakan all the level. Macam solution tu, macam tadi solution, jangan harapkan dari SUHAKAM sahaja. Kita tak nak menjadikan SUHAKAM menjadi Superman, nak selesaikan semua masalah, bukan. Sebab kita memang ada agensi yang lain. Kita ada BPS kita ada Bursa Malaysia, kita ada Bank Negara, semua ni ada peranan-peranan dalam pembangunan yang lestari. Ya? Jadi far from perfect, tapi we kena work on it. Dalam tu ada champion dia sendiri. Ya, kita work with those champions. So, I think there are lots of good points that came out. I'll stop here. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you, Jayas and Tenggus for the answers. I think we come to the end of the Q&A sessions. Again, let's give a big hand to both of them. Okay, I would like to also, I think we are coming to the end of the sessions. I think the last but not least, I would like to invite Mr. Dennis, the President of CHERA, to give his closing speech. Thank you.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Yeah, a bit over time, I'll be brief. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends in this fight for a safer, healthier, cleaner environment, well, we hear you all today, and thank you for being here. CHERA began as a civil society movement in 2015, aimed at understanding the drivers and effects of haze pollution affecting Southeast Asia. Since then, we have worked to raise awareness and influence national and regional decision-making on haze and air pollution. We have formed the CHERA Coalition together with our partners and allies, collectively advocating for those affected and calling for systemic changes, the ones that you've heard today, to protect our democratic right to clean air. The report we're launching today is a direct consequence of that collective effort. It is a powerful call to action for everyone, but it has to be by everyone. I'll speak plainly. Someone asked recently, what's the point of protesting? This was in relation to global conflict. To which in response, what's the point of not protesting? What's the point of not voicing up? We cannot identify the root causes if we do not voice up. Everything that was shared here today was possible because it was observed, monitored, tracked, and subsequently shared, so that something can be done. This report is proof that action was possible. When all of us many years ago said, no one will listen to us, nothing will be done, government will brush it aside. But this is proof that all of this can lead somewhere. I speak to you directly, all of you, especially those who are affected by haze pollution. Your voices led to this. And just as this report proved from your bravery, we need more people to step up and never stop stepping up to share these experiences. Once upon a time, it seemed very distant, but here we are, and it is reality. Every voice, of course, counts and of course matters. The biggest mistake we can all make from here on is being complacent, as we all know. And only reaching out to this report on a per needs basis, a company needs it, for reporting, believing someone else will take care of it. We cannot let that happen. We need to be vigilant and proactive from here on. We must ensure that this report, these recommendations, especially as we move into next year's ASEAN Summit chair position, and all the hard efforts that were put into it, they do not fade away. Just like the haze cannot be a once in a few years thing. The action that needs to take place has to continuously happen during the so-called off-season. We hear now, not just today, but in previous sessions as well, that this is obviously not a once in 3 or 4 years thing. This is something that is every day. There are many persons in our communities now who are breathing this, who are breathing air pollution, and this is unacceptable. I want to emphasize again that this report belongs to all of us. citizens, activists, educators, decision makers, healthcare, business, media. I encourage all of us to please take ownership. We may not have the best solutions right now, but this is how we get there. Your ideas and your efforts are crucial from here in spreading awareness about its findings and recommendations. And of course, Gerard Coalition, all the NGOs working on this, I believe we will continue to welcome them and support them as best as we can. I just want to quickly point out some of the things that were discussed. I hear the gentleman, Mr. Suresh, very well. We need to empower local communities. This is missing. It starts with us, and we should not stop. And as Pri shared as well just now, it's so important and so fundamental for the rest of us to be aware that the haze is coming through the predatory nature of business. But many parts of the world are looking at the global south as a place where they can park their interests, and this is of course unacceptable. And how come this is not already public knowledge, or fully public knowledge? So we need to drive this. Moving forward, I envision Gerard to be working even more closely with partners to strategize and raise awareness based on the insights, not just from this report, but other reports as well, relevant. We have the knowledge and passion to make this difference. So together we can demand accountability from those responsible for haze pollution. Safe, clean, healthy, sustainable environment. This right is not an option. This is a birthright. So we will keep pushing until this birthright is realized for all communities. But this would not be possible. I would like to end by thanking everyone who is here today. But this would really not be possible. And on the point of justice earlier, I will not be able to do justice in my next minute of this closing remark. I'll never be able to do justice to the contributions that were provided by the people who sacrificed so much to put this launch and this report, and so much had to come together for us to get to this point. But I want to extend my deepest gratitude to all the SUHAKAM commissioners, the Kufauzi. They were essential in driving the roundtable discussion that formed the basis of this report. The SUHAKAM working committee members, they worked so hard to make this report a reality, including Dato' Maui Kai, those who work in the report, no longer with SUHAKAM. We really want to extend the deepest gratitude to them. And of course, to the people who authored this report, Mr. Jaya, Heng Kia Chun, Dr. Helena Maki, who is not here, Azira Aziz, Melanie Go, all the other contributors. These people sacrificed so much and they played such an instrumental role in shaping this report. Thank you. Thank you so much to all the coalition members, all the partners. I'll not be able to name all of you one by one, but you know who you are. Thank you so much. And most importantly, the people who were affected. I think the people who were affected, this comes from you. So thank you so much. Let us commit to this, and let us not look back from here. Thank you.
Okay, I try to finish in 60 seconds. Okay, to summarize it, this morning we have discussed many important elements in tackling these environmental problems. Okay, we share our frustrations, we share our hopes, we share our fears, because we care about our family, we care about our home, we care about our future for a better environment. We always look for perfections in enacting a better law, but sometimes continuous improvement is much better than delayed perfections. Having an imperfect law is better than no law at all. So, to demand a clean environment, we must hold big polluter accountable. To be the best human rights defender, we must also be able to handle the worst polluter. In conclusion, forest fire and transboundary haze all these are man-made disasters that could have been prevented. Rich country cause a problem, whereas the poor people, the vulnerable group are suffering, and this is climate injustice. That is why we are campaigning against forest fire, we are campaigning against haze pollution. Because if we do not stop forest fire, we cannot stop climate change. Therefore, clean air is a basic human right. We are calling people to work with us together to say Tanah Jerebu and clean air for all. We will continue to grow, to bring hopes and successes for better environments. So let us work together. With that, I announce the end of the event for today. And I know that all of us are hungry and want to go eat. Yes, we promise you SUHAKAM provide you a good lunch. But please, I want to have a request again. Before we end our session today, we want to take a group photo. Just everyone please stand up and just sit in the front, stand in the front. Okay? And then the photographer will take photo from here. Okay, just everyone just gather here. Some people that can take part with the recommendations. Okay, just yeah, closer. Let's finish it in 30 seconds. Okay, later we will have a group photo and then we also have a chanting. The chanting is, I will say